All right, so good evening, everyone. All right, hello, hello. Does everyone have their ID card on? Gentleman right here, do you have your ID? All right. So my name is Alan Hudson. I'm the principal here at the high school. It's great to look out and see so many eager parents that want to learn about the college application process. How many of you have been through this process already? By a show of hands. Okay. All right. So I've been through it 4 times. And it's not the reason I'm bald. All right. It is a process. Can be a daunting, overwhelming process. But I have some good news for you. All right. We have our amazing counselors here who are going to present and give you a lot of information today because don't think about it as you're trying to absorb everything tonight. This presentation that you're going to see today, it is being live streamed, and you will be able to get in contact with your guidance counselors and view it at a future date. So, I was always the note taker to take notes, but feel free, sit back. You'll have a chance to ask questions. It is a process, but it is something that everyone goes through. And I'm sure with our superheroes we have here, I'm going to introduce all 3 of them. I love to put people on the spot. All right. So first we have Miss Anderson. All right. Miss Schnall. I like this corner. All right. And new to our Glen Cove High School team, we have Miss McAuliffe. All right. So at this point, I just want to give anyone an opportunity. We are live streaming this in English as well as in Spanish. So if there's anyone here who would like to hear the presentation in Spanish, feel free to leave at this time. You can go down to room 123. Ms. Padilla, one of our assistant principals in the back, and she could help you if you are not familiar as to where room 123 is. All right. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to present Ms. Anderson, who will begin the process. All right.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. So like Mr. Hudson said, this is a process, and we're here with you every step of the way. So I like to preface this. You're going to hear a lot of information, but we're going to go over it so many times. I see some of my seniors 3 or 4 times a week throughout the year during the college application process, so we're always here to help. So you'll hear it. It's going to sound like a lot. It is a lot. It's like a part-time job, but we're here to help you. So don't feel too overwhelmed. We're kind of giving you like the overview of everything that you do have some time to do, okay? So the GPA and transcript. So you can have access on your portal to the transcript. So we want you to review it just to make sure you look over it, everything looks correct. Over the last 4 years, all the classes you've taken, the credits you've earned, the grades, regents, just make sure everything looks correct on there. It's better to have an extra pair of eyes on there than just one, so that we can make sure we have all the corrections, so that when we go to send it out for applications, everything is correct and we don't have to make any changes. Okay, so when you do get to review it, please sit down and review it and let your counselor know if you notice any changes that need to be made, and we'll make the corrections. Okay, so at some point too, colleges may look for mid-year reports, so they're going to look for semester 1 grades. So that's why we always say your grades are important even if you're senior, so no senioritis. Okay, I know it's hard, you're excited, you're a senior, you have a little more freedom, but you have to make sure that you are still maintaining your responsibilities, going to classes, getting those grades, because if the school wants to see that mid-year report, that could be the difference between you and another student if you get accepted or not. You could be the same, but maybe that student buckled down a little bit more and you didn't, you had a little more senioritis, and that could be the reason you don't get chosen for a school. So make sure that, again, you fulfill all your responsibilities for the year and don't try to have too much fun, okay? So application. So I know a lot of the counselors do help you create like a Common App account in the junior meetings or advise you to start creating one. So most of the applications that you're going to do will be on the Common App. So if you're going to apply to some CUNY schools, you would have to use the CUNY application. If you're going to do SUNY, you can use the SUNY application, but most of the SUNY schools are on the Common App. FIT is not, but you will find most of the other ones on there. So you can kind of use Common App, which will have everything, and kind of have one spot where you use all of your college applications so that you can refer back to that one spot. Okay, there's also Nassau Community College is a separate application, so if you wanted to apply to Nassau, that is a separate application that you would also apply to. So this year, again, they're having free applications. So you can, for SUNY, it's up to 5 schools, October 21st to November 3rd, and CUNY, up to 6 schools, November 4th to November 15th. Now, with SUNY, if you're going to apply on the Common App, you're going to have to go to each school individually and put in, yes, that I'm accepting the free waiver for the week. And if you're going to apply on SUNY, it will automatically go to the 5 schools. So you don't have to worry about that. But if you're going to use Common App, that's fine as well. If you already qualify for free or reduced lunch, we do have a list. Make sure you turn in that lunch form that you get at the beginning of the year, turn it into the main office, because if you do qualify, you don't have to rush to get the free application. You would qualify for the free application. So if you're not ready to get it done this early, you have some time if you qualify for free or reduced lunch. If you don't, this is a perfect opportunity to save a lot of money. You can save up to like $250, $300 just by applying to these 5 or 6 schools, because it does add up pretty quickly. Okay, so take advantage of it, make sure you get everything done, and again, if you can use this opportunity, you definitely should. All right, so there's different ways to apply, and not every school has all of these. Some of them may have some, it may be different for others, it's mix and match, so it really depends on the school. So you really, really have to make sure you're always referring to the school's website, look at those deadlines, look at those dates, okay, always confirming and cross-referencing just to make sure, because one due date for one school is not the same for the other. So you don't want to miss out on any opportunities and absolutely not miss any deadlines, because that's the most important part. You miss a deadline, it's not a good look, so you have to make sure you're abiding by those deadlines. So there's different ways. There's early decision 1 and early decision 2. This is binding. So what that means is if you apply early decision and you get accepted to that school, you're going to go to that school. Okay, so you would pick like your dream school if you're all in and this is the school you really want to go to and they offer early decision, you can use that as an option. Okay, now if you get in, you have to withdraw all other applications from the other colleges that you applied to. Okay, if you want to apply early but you don't necessarily want the binding aspect of it, you can apply early action. Early action allows you to still apply early. You still find out early if you got into college, but it's not binding. And you can apply as many times as you want to different colleges, early action, as long as they offer it. Okay? And that's usually around both of those, early decision and early action is usually November 1st and November 15th. But there are some schools that do have an October 15th deadline. So make sure, again, you're always referring to those deadlines and making sure you know when you want to apply, because there is a lot of different steps that we're going to go over throughout the presentation that you need to have done before you can be ready to submit your application. Then there is regular admissions. So if you're not ready to apply early and you need a little bit more time, you can apply regular admissions, which is usually like in January. It takes a little bit longer to find out if you got in or not, but it is another way that you can apply. You can apply early action to one school, regular to another. It doesn't have to match. It can be mix and match for different schools. And rolling admissions, which means you can apply at any time and they'll review the applications as they get them. So you could hear back sooner. Sometimes it takes longer to hear back. It could be like 6 to 8 weeks, but we've had students from some schools hear back within a week. So it really depends on the school. It depends on how many applications they're getting at that time and when they can review it and when you get your answer. Okay, but maybe you want the early decision 1 and 2 and early action 1 and 2, maybe you're not ready for that November 1st. So they offer sometimes an early action 2 or early decision 2, which gives you like an extra month to get things done. So let's say your SAT or ACT score, you're not happy with it. So you want to take it one more time and you take it in October. You have some time now to get those scores back before you would have to apply, still benefiting by applying early, but you're not bound by the November 1st. You get an extra month. Okay, again, that's only if they offer it, but those are different ways that you can apply. Maybe your application is ready for one school, but it's not for another, so you use a different application deadline. Okay? And then the application process. So transcripts and letters of recommendation. So we handle that in the guidance office. Do not accept or request letters of recommendation on the Common App. That is all done on Naviance. Okay, so sometimes we'll get students that send us a request and we ask them to send it back because it has to go through Naviance. So everything else, you fill out your application information on Common App, and then you invite your teachers for the letters of recommendation on Naviance. We'll be writing a letter for all of our students, so we will handle that and take care of that. And then we will also attach the letters of recommendations from the teachers with your applications when you're ready to apply. So making appointment, so you always, again, I told you, I meet with my students sometimes 3 or 4 times a week. I know the other ladies do as well. We're here to help. We know it's a lot, it's overwhelming. I'd rather you ask the question, whether you think it's silly or not, because another student probably has the same exact question. Okay, there's no silly questions. It's gonna be silly if you wait the day before and now we have to get something done by the next day and it may not be possible. So whatever the question is, reach out to us, email us, just make sure you, again, are being proactive rather than procrastinating and not letting us know what's going on. So this is a big one. So keep track of deadlines. Okay, again, all deadlines are different, as I mentioned before. I find it easiest to maybe keep a binder, organize yourself, put in the earliest deadline for the school that you want, and then maybe put the backup deadline. So you can kind of see right in front of you, okay, these are my deadlines, this is the earliest deadline I have, this is when I have to have all the material done. Now, the 2-week notification, and this happens every year, we need at least 2 weeks for you to let us know that you are getting ready to apply. So if you have a November 1st deadline, you're coming to us October 15th, 2 weeks before, letting us know, giving us the proper documentation that we need to let us know you are applying. You don't need to be finished with your applications at that point, but you need to let us know because there's stuff on our end that we need to do to make sure we meet your deadline with you. So if you don't give us at least 2 weeks, that kind of notifies us to write your letter, to make sure all the teachers have their stuff in, to make sure you have everything that you need. So you have to give us that 2-week window because we need that time to make sure we ensure we meet your deadline. Okay, so if you give us less time, we can't ensure that we meet your deadline. So the 2-week is a really hard 2-week deadline. So make sure you abide by that because every year we get a student that comes the day before and says, I have an application due tomorrow, can you write my letter and get everything ready? Okay, and we figure out we get it done, but like it's not always like that, okay? It doesn't always work that way, so you have to make sure you give us time, okay? Keep a file for every college. Like I said, keep that binder, keep everything organized. Read directions carefully. I always advise my students and families to, again, refer back to the college's website. Common App, Naviance have a lot of great and useful information, but it's not everything, okay? So you have to make sure that you go to the college's website to get everything that you would possibly need for that application. Some things are on Common App, but the rest could be on that actual website. And again, don't panic if you receive an email that's saying you're missing something from your application. And again, this happens every year too. We have students that come rushing into our office saying that they're missing their transcript, they don't have this, they don't have that. But when you submit an application, it does take some time for them to process it, download it, and then update your portal account. So give it some time. As long as you know you submitted everything on your end, and I always say keep all your receipts. Keep all your receipts so you know when you turned it in so that if we need proof to go back to say, no, I turned this in, we have it. Okay, if they're missing a transcript, it's not a big deal. We'll turn it in. It takes some time to update. So give it a few weeks. If you're still seeing that things are missing, then bring it to our attention and we can kind of look into it. But if you just submitted and you're looking the next day, don't expect it to say it's completely updated. Okay, so just give it some time. And then at the end, make sure every time you submit an application, you have to create a portal account. So this is the way of colleges sending the information, and you can kind of track and monitor your application. You can see admissions decisions on there. You can see financial aid decisions on there. It will tell you if you're missing anything on your application. So make sure the second you submit, you look out for those credentials because they're going to send you an email, and you're going to have to use that email to create a portal account. Now, if you apply to 10 schools, you have 10 portal accounts. It's not one portal account for everything. So make sure that you, again, create those separate accounts, monitor your applications. And then, yes, so I mentioned this earlier, no senioritis, because your acceptance is contingent upon your final transcript. And what that means is we're submitting a transcript in the fall or winter, and they're going to take that transcript, and that's what they're expecting, these grades. If you decide after that you submitted your applications, I'm going to drop out of all these classes I don't need, I'm going to slack off, I'm going to do the bare minimum, we have to send them at the end of the year, and they could take back their acceptance if they feel you're not meeting your end of the bargain. So just because you got an acceptance doesn't mean it can't be taken away. You still have to maintain your end and what your expectations are for you. Okay, so just always remember that. You can get accepted, but it can be taken away if you decide to not, again, hold your end of the bargain. Now, there's different admissions decisions. So accept is yay, you got in. Okay, that's what we want to hear, right? But sometimes you can get denied, which is why it's important to apply to more than one school. Apply to multiple schools. Look at the range of schools that you're applying to. So they'll go into that a little bit more. But you want to make sure you have a balanced college list. You don't want all just reach schools that you have that are difficult to get into. Have a balance. There's defer. So if you don't get in, they could push you over to the next kind of admissions pool. So if you apply early decision, and that's binding, but you get deferred, that no longer is binding, and you'll get pushed to either the regular admissions pool, okay, the next one. If you apply regular admissions, you'd get waitlisted or pushed to the wait list, okay, which goes to the next one, which is waitlist. So that means, again, you didn't get accepted or denied, but it doesn't mean you're going to come off the wait list. They have to send out all of their admissions decisions, see who accepts the offers, and then they can go off of the wait list. And potentially you could come off of it. Summer start is sometimes they'll have you start earlier, the end of June, beginning of July, and you just get kind of like a transition program into college. Okay, so you get a little extra time. And then spring admittance, and I've seen this with like more restrictive schools. I've seen it with Binghamton, that you don't necessarily get accepted for the fall, but they'll say they'll give you spring admittance, so you could then go in the spring. So some students, if they really wanted to go to Binghamton or whatever school it is, will start at Nassau or another school for that semester and then transfer over in the spring and go to that school that they had originally wanted to go to. And now, so that's all of my part, but I'm going to turn it over to Ms. McAuliffe, who's going to go over Naviance.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Hi, everyone. I'm Ms. McAuliffe. It's nice to kind of meet you all from afar. So like Ms. Anderson said, obviously you haven't really gotten to meet me yet, but over the next few weeks and months, you and your child will start to get to know me very well. So I am here to help, so please feel free to email me or call me whenever you have a question, even if it's something simple. I am going to talk to you about Naviance a little bit. So last year, when you were juniors, you were supposedly, from what I was told, introduced to Naviance. Raise your hand if you have been on Naviance recently, if you know of Naviance. Okay, that's great. So you're already a head start. So Naviance is now actually a single sign-on. So what that means is if you go in your waffle on your Google page, you should be able to log right in from there with your Glen Cove credentials. So that's something different this year. So it is a little bit easier for you just to get access straight onto Naviance. It's basically just one single page that you're going to go to pretty much very frequently over the next few weeks and months. It's used for college and career planning, essentially. It's your connection to us as your counselors, and then also to the Common App, which is where you will do most of your applications on. So we use it at Glen Cove to complete a lot of different surveys. So if you haven't gone on there yet, there are surveys that you can take to kind of see maybe where you're interested in going career-wise. If you haven't gotten an idea of your major yet, you can also go on there and kind of just see maybe where you fall on some of those surveys. You can compare colleges. Comparing colleges is one of my favorite things. You can kind of compare and see the different tuitions for the schools. If you're not too familiar with the college process yet, it kind of just gives you ideas of what the difference is between a private school, a SUNY school, a CUNY school, and different locations and sizes and all of those things as well. Tracking deadlines. So like Ms. Anderson said, I know all of the counselors will be pretty strict on this. I told a student the other day, if you're not doing a binder, do an Excel spreadsheet. The guidance counselors are a really good source for this as well. I think organization, your senior year, is your most important because you need to be keeping track of all of the work that you are doing. As far as the scattergrams are really important for you to look at as well. I think this is a great tool for parents. So we use it at Glen Cove. You can use this scattergram to kind of see where you're at with the students who have graduated from Glen Cove High School in the past. So you can use it for your target, reach, and safety schools using your credentials. You put your credentials in, which I think they might already be in the Naviance system. So they should already be in there. Once you go on the scattergram, you can kind of see what schools and where you kind of fall in the admissions pool. And then lastly, you can use this to sign up for colleges, for college meetings with us as well as the guidance counselors. But again, you can always email us, or if you're in the school building and you have a free, you can just come down to guidance and schedule an appointment with us. So just very briefly, I'm going to just go through how you will go through Naviance and do some of the important things for the next few weeks. If you don't get all of this right now, this is something that we'll go over in your individual meetings as well. So don't feel like you have to take every little note down, because we will go over it time and time again. So the main page at the top, you'll see all different tabs. The one that you're going to use a lot is the colleges tab. So under colleges, there's different things that you can see. So you can look at the college compare page, all of the different resources, the acceptance history, so on and so forth. And then colleges I'm applying to and letters of recommendation are going to be where you start to request your teacher letters of recommendation. Next, this is also very important for us and for the schools. We will start to match your accounts. So Naviance actually goes with the Common App now. So we'll match your Naviance account with your Common App account, which allows us as the counselors to be able to send your letters of recommendation as well as the student transcripts directly to Naviance. So you can actually see when everything is uploaded, and you can see when they've processed to the schools. So this is something else when we say, like, don't worry if something is not in right away. Everything will be timestamped when your documents are uploaded on Naviance. You can see when everything actually gets uploaded, and you can also see when everything gets sent to the school. So there is a digital timestamp as well. So for teacher recommendations, students were advised to already ask their teachers if they would like to write them a letter of recommendation for this year. If you have not already done so, I would say that would be your job over the next week or two. I like personally to go talk to the teachers one-on-one. I think that's best, and then follow it up with an email. Teachers also have to stay really organized, so you might catch somebody in the hallway, but they might also be running to their next period class. So they need something to document that you've actually asked them. So if you are asking a teacher and they're running through the hallway, or if they're in their free period, just follow it up with an email. I think that's the best way to go. And then this way you also have documentation that you ask them as well. And if for some reason somebody does not get back to you right away, you can just follow up with another email in a few days, or you can come to guidance and we can speak with the teacher for you, or with you, I should say, not for you. So you're going to also provide your teachers with a list of colleges that you are applying to. You also want to tell them if you are interested in a specific major. And I think Ms. Schnall might go into this a little bit more, but as far as letters of recommendation, if you are asking a teacher, or if you're going for a specific major, such as the science field, the medical field, I would gear your letters of recommendation requests maybe a little bit more towards your math or your science teachers, because you'll want to have a teacher who is able to write a little bit more specifically about that subject that you are in. So you're making sure that you're providing them with enough information to be able to write you a really solid letter of recommendation. Letters of recommendation have become extremely important in the college application process over the last few years, especially because the SAT has been optional. So they are relying on other pieces of the application. So you really want to make sure that you're giving your teachers enough information, giving us enough information as your counselors, so that we can then write the best letter of recommendation for you. Responding with a thank you note, that's pretty much just responding again with an email. So if somebody does say, yes, I would love to write your letter of recommendation, just being polite with your manners and saying thank you, I really appreciate it. It doesn't have to be anything in depth, but just, you know, going out of your way a little bit, because the teacher is adding something to their plate too to write you a letter of recommendation. So you just want to say a nice thank you to them very briefly in an email. And then the teachers are all linked in Naviance as well. So when you go on Naviance, you will actually go into the letters of recommendation request. Through there will be a drop-down box. I don't know if we have that up here. I think we do. So you'll click on add request, the drop-down box will come down, all of the teacher names will come down. They should all be in there. If for some reason it's not in there, just come tell us, but they should all be in there. You'll click on your teacher name, and then from there you'll click on general request. and then you will be able to request the teacher from there. There will also be a little box on the bottom that will allow you to attach a note to the request as well. So if for some reason you forgot to send the email when you talk to them in passing, you can also just add a note to it, and it'll be attached to the request that they received too. And then you could do the same thing for your other teachers. Most schools require at least 2 letters of recommendation. Some only accept 1, and some will accept more. So that's another thing to keep track of too when you are looking at the schools, seeing what schools accept which, seeing what teachers you want to go to which schools as well. Because we actually can control which schools receive which teacher letters of recommendation. So that's something you want to make note of when you are telling us what program you're applying for or the schools that you're applying for specifically. Just making note of how many letters of recommendations these schools accept. And now I'm going to invite Ms. Schnall to come up and talk a little bit about college fairs.
So Naviance is a great tool to do some research, but the college fair, which hopefully a lot of you came to our large college fair in the spring, is a great way to connect with the reps. Those reps are essentially the first line of defense when it comes to your application. So they're the ones that are in charge of our school regionally, and they're reviewing your child's individual application. So they're actually seeing the application. So if you made a good connection with them at the college fair, maybe they gave you a card, now you have a contact. It really is a great way to kind of make a connection, but also to get a more personalized understanding of what the college has to offer, to be able to answer any questions so that you guys are doing the best research for you. We have mini college fairs, so it's not as large as our large college fair in the spring, but throughout September and the first week in October, we have invited colleges to come in. We'll be giving you this schedule, and it's also actually posted right outside the door on a little sign, so if you're on your way out and you want to snap a picture of it, you can. That way, if any of the colleges that you're interested in are on that list, you know it's probably a good idea. Let me go make some time, let me go talk to those reps, and let me get any of my questions answered, or at least, you know, like I said, make that connection and form that contact with them. There are a lot of other college fairs. I will, you know, a little caveat to it is those are very large. So my one recommendation, if you're going to go to any of the other college fairs, is that you go in with a game plan. Many times they will tell you which colleges are going to be there, so you can kind of go in and kind of highlight the ones that you are looking to talk to. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck at a table talking to a college that you have no interest going to. It's going to be very overwhelming. It's sometimes hot in the gyms, but they can be really useful. So there's pros and cons to the larger college fairs. So, you know, it's kind of like enter at your own risk when it comes to those, but go in with a game plan, because that's the only way that you're going to find any sort of usefulness in those college fairs, if you go in with a game plan. So, you know, when you're doing your research, a lot of things that have come up is how important are those SAT or ACT scores, right? Many of the schools since COVID have gone test optional, which is great for a lot of our students who maybe aren't the best test takers. However, not every school is test optional. A lot of them have continued to remain test optional. So you really have to figure out, and each school is different, whether or not A, it's a test optional school, and B, is your major at that school test optional? We are finding more and more with majors like nursing, like engineering, that they are still looking for an SAT score or an ACT score, even if that school itself is test optional. Sometimes they may require an SAT or an ACT score for a specific scholarship, a merit-based scholarship, so based on your grades and your numbers and your scores. So it is always good to have a strong score in your back pocket should you need to play that card. However, when you're going off test optional, it means that you're not required to send your scores. We always kind of advise our students, if the score that you have is at or better than their average, then it's probably a good idea to send that score. If you're below what they're looking for, and maybe you have a really strong transcript, or you have a lot of other extracurricular activities in addition to a strong transcript, then it might be a good idea to apply test optional. I would say if you're not sure whether to send your score or not, you should speak with your counselors individually when you're getting ready to submit your applications. You will submit your test scores directly from the testing website. So when you go onto College Board or ACT.org, you will have to list all of the schools that you want to send your scores to. There is a fee attached with it as well, and then you will have to send those scores from the testing website. They're looking for official scores, so we don't send over the scores for you. They have to come from the testing website themselves. If they're test optional and they're not looking for scores and you choose not to send your scores, they can't penalize you for not sending your scores. So if a school is test optional and you're choosing not to send your scores, what they're going to do is they're going to place emphasis on the other aspects of your application. So that's something you want to consider, that your other aspects of your application, like your transcript, your activities, your essay, all of those are really strong, because then that's what they're going to be focusing on. Okay? So like I said, how you would submit your scores is directly through the testing website, so either ACT.org or collegeboard.org. It does take about 1 to 2 weeks for them to potentially receive those scores. Even though it's digital, it's not automatic. So I would say that when you're giving your forms to us, which is hopefully 2 weeks ahead of time, like we asked, that you also submit your scores at that time then, because then it's giving you 2 weeks prior to your earliest deadline to ensure that they receive your scores. And then again, you want to be aware, sometimes they will have trackers in your portal where you're looking to see, okay, did they get my transcript? Did they get my application? Do they have my scores? If you send your scores and then like the next day you look and they still haven't received it, just be patient, give it some time. They have to download it from a server a lot of times, or these messages go out automatically once you submit. So don't fret and don't fear if you get a message saying that they don't have it, or you look in your portal and you don't see it right away. As Ms. Anderson said, if it's 1 or 2 weeks and you're not seeing it, then maybe follow up with College Board or ACT, or you can call the college yourself. I have found a lot of times when I just pick up the phone and call the college, they're like, oh, no, we have it. We'll update it. And then they update your portal saying they have it. So a lot of times they do have it. And please don't be scared, students, not parents, students, to reach out to the colleges yourself. Mom and dad, it's a little bit of cut the cord. I know you're not ready for it, but they don't want to talk to you. Sorry, they want to talk to the student. Even if we call with the student, they are having the conversation with the student on speakerphone. They don't want to hear from us. They don't want to hear from you. This is the student now. This is their, application. So I would advise, if you have any questions, don't feel like you can't reach out to the college directly to get an answer that you need, okay? Another aspect is, okay, so we've done our research, we visited schools, we filled out these applications. How are we going to pay for college? If any of you heard last year, the FAFSA was quite a dumpster fire, for lack of better words. It was very delayed in coming out. So if any of you have seniors from last year, or even have kids, older kids that are already in college, you have to do this application every year. It's basically the free application for federal student aid, and this is a need-based situation. So if financially you are deemed to be in need of financial assistance to help pay for college, this is where that money is coming from. This is separate from institutional grants or scholarships or anything. This is a need-based situation. So we are hopeful that this year it will come out in December. In the past, it has always come out in October. Last year, it didn't come out until the end of January, but we're hoping that they got all the kinks out with the new application last year, and so this year will be a little bit more smooth sailing. So keep an eye out for it. What you can do now is you can actually go on and create the PIN, which is your login information. It's like essentially your account. You won't be able to fill it out yet, but you at least will be able to create the account. They do have to validate your account, so sometimes when you go to create it, it takes about a day or two in order for you to get your login credentials. So that's something you can do now to prepare for when that financial aid is available. So financial aid, as I said, this is a need-based thing. This can cover tuition. Sometimes it can cover books, transportation. Sometimes it will cover room and board. It depends, on like how much you're given. First, it will always go, for the most part, towards tuition. And it does come in the form of loans, grants, scholarships. Sometimes people do work study, which is where you're essentially given a job on campus, and then you do get a paycheck, and then you're expected to use that paycheck to put towards your payments that are due for the college. But again, we're hoping it opens in December. Fingers crossed. We'll see how that goes. So you would first, like I said, want to create your PIN. The website is fafsa.gov, FAFSA.gov, free application for federal student aid. That's what it stands for. There are plenty of YouTube videos online on how to do it. We might be offering, depending on what happens with the application this year, a financial aid workshop where you will be able to schedule a time and come in. We bring admissions reps from different colleges, and then they will sit and be able to answer any specific questions that you have about the application. Since the rollout of the new application last year, we did hear that the application itself is shorter, there's less questions, it's less invasive. So we're hopeful that it's going to be the same for this year, but unfortunately, you never know. So, but I would definitely recommend, looking at YouTube videos, or even if you have specific questions about your financial situation. We're not accountants and we're not financial aid experts. But the one thing you can do is, if you have a question when you are filling out the financial aid application, is you can reach out to any financial aid office. It doesn't, even if you're like, well, I don't want to call the financial aid office because I don't want them to think that we need all this money and then my kid's not going to get in. Call a random school your kid's not even going to, and they will be able to answer those financial aid questions for you. They see this document every single day. They are well versed in it, and they will be the ones to go to. But if you do have specific questions, now would be a good time also to kind of talk to your accountants, the people who are doing your taxes. You're going to be using your taxes from the year before that you just, so from 2 years before, but the 1 year filed. So, you have to have all this information ahead of time, and you can go to the website and find out what you need. That way you're prepared when you sit down to do that application online. Oh wait, I forgot CSS, yeah. So if you're applying to private colleges, a lot of them will require something called the CSS profile. It's similar to the financial aid document, but it's a lot more invasive. They want to know about every asset that you own, every single detail of your financial situation. They're going to be looking at for the CSS profile, and those usually are for those more private colleges and universities, and you're required to do it if you're looking for any sort of, like institutional grants or merit money or anything like that for those schools. And that would be done, you can go to that website, thecollegeboard.org, and then the CSS financial aid profile. So as I mentioned, scholarships is another way to help pay for college. We take scholarships here, and we strongly, strongly encourage your students to apply for anything and everything that's out there. It's kind of like a full-time job applying for scholarships if you give it that much effort, but the reward is that a lot of times there is money sitting on the table for scholarships that none of our students applied to. So that money is there. snatch it. It's yours, but you have to put in the work and you have to fill out the applications. So there's different types of scholarships. Some of them will come directly from the colleges themselves. So those will be merit-based scholarships. They'll look at your application and evaluate you for those things when you apply, oftentimes. Some have things that you can apply to within their school, but every school is different. And then there's, other ones that are need-based, and that's going to be, again, that's going to be driven by that financial aid document, that FAFSA application that you're doing. Again, both of these things are great, and they do help pay for college. Scholarship is free money. It's money that you don't have to pay back. Financial aid can also offer you loans, but you want that free money. You want those grants, you want those merit-based scholarships, because that's money that goes right to the school and comes right off the bottom line of what you eventually will have to owe. There are some websites that you can use, fastweb.com. Those are national scholarships, so you have to remember they're not just local to Glen Cove. So we have about 200 and change in our senior class, and not everyone's even applying for scholarships, but these national ones are, it's globally. So everyone is applying to these. The odds of getting it are a lot lower than if you apply to some of the more local ones. So we go ahead and we post all of the local scholarships and some of the more popular larger scholarships in Naviance under the scholarship tab. So if you go into your Naviance profile, on the top, you have all those tabs. We have a scholarship section where you are able to access things like the community scholarship, if you've ever heard of that. And then other, like I said, popular scholarships that students in the past have received at our school. So again, if you're putting in the time and the effort and you're researching which scholarships would be a good match for you to apply to, because they all have different requirements, then hopefully you will reap the benefits of, getting that scholarship at the end of the day. And we do have a big scholarship awards, like presentation or ceremony where students are given the scholarships at the end of the year. And it really is, it's really just a nice presentation of all of your hard work after these 4 years here at high school. If you are a college athlete or planning to be one, right? I should say planning to be one. Hopefully your counselor knows this, because if they don't, you might be putting yourself at risk of not being eligible for the NCAA. So if your child is planning to play a sport in college, it is essential that you are communicating this as early as possible, if you haven't already, to the counselor. There are certain requirements through NCAA, think of the movie The Blind Side, that you need to meet in order to be eligible to play a sport in college. So if you're wondering what the eligibility is, you can go to the Clearinghouse website, but you really need to check with your counselor, because the classes that you take here in high school is what makes you eligible, and the grades that you earned is what makes you eligible to play in college at a D1, D2 school. Miss Anderson is a D1 athlete. She can tell you that. Okay, yeah, she can tell you about this process.
I am a former D1 soccer player, so I did play at George Mason, and it is imperative. You should have already told us if you're going to play a D1 or D2 sport, because there are a lot of requirements, okay? And it's fine as long as you were in the classes, you're communicating it to us, it's fine. But the other thing I want to mention is, just because you get recruited and they say, we want you to go to this school, you're going to go to this school, we're going to give you a full scholarship, you're not accepted until you are accepted through admissions. You still have to be accepted through admissions like everybody else. So they could want you all they want, but until you're accepted through admissions, that is not a definite answer. Okay, so you would be recruited, reaching out to all of these schools, you'd have your Clearinghouse website profile, and you'll be communicating, again, with these college coaches and finding out the next steps for it. There is a form that we have in guidance that we need to submit so that we can confirm that everything is correct, and that you can then make sure that you've met all requirements for NCAA. You don't need it for D3, just for D1 and D2, okay?
Yeah, because there are certain classes that you need, just like graduation requirements. Division sports through the NCAA have their own requirements. So even though you're looking at it and you think, okay, I have 3 years of English and 2 sciences and 2 maths, the math you took might not be an NCAA approved math. So you really need to make sure that you're communicating with this with us. There are worksheets that we will sit down and take your transcripts and make sure that the classes that you took make you eligible. And this is why it's so important, and we do mention this every single year, but I have to say, I feel like more and more lately, I can only speak for myself, but I have been caught off guard with students that all of a sudden had a really good season, and senior year, they're like, oh yeah, D1 school's talking to me. And I'm like, a D1 school's talking to you? What? Like, so we don't want that. If you could play at a school, fantastic. Let's just make sure that you qualify through NCAA first. So again, if you are thinking that, if your child is someone who is considering that for a D1 or D2 school, please let your counselor know as soon as possible, especially now, because we can still make changes in the schedule. You don't want it to be too late and then all of a sudden now you're not academically eligible, okay? One of the best things that you can do is get into our Google Classroom. Your children have all automatically been enrolled in it, and we have been using it since 9th grade, so every year it grows with your child. And this is one of the best ways that we communicate with you. We also house all of our documents in the Google Classroom, and we'll show you the Google Classroom during our senior meetings. Senior meetings are going to be starting soon, so if you haven't scheduled them, please call the guidance office, and they run about an hour long. We do review everything that we went over, but we are now speaking specifically about your child and which colleges your child's going to, what their SAT scores look like, who they're asking for letters of recommendation. So it is a very personalized meeting, but hopefully today it kind of broke the ice a little bit. Now you're hearing words, you're hearing terms, and you're starting to learn what it all means, and then we will tie it all together in that senior meeting. So if you haven't already, please reach out to the guidance office and schedule that meeting. But in our Google Classroom, again, we will send notifications about upcoming scholarship deadlines, like the community scholarship. We share information like we're having a guidance presentation night, please join us. We'll share important updates and information, and it really is a main line of communication between the guidance office and you, your student. And like I said, there is a folder in there that houses tons and tons of material. All of the documents that you're going to need, the student autobiography, the transcript request form, all the forms that we're going to show you that work through the process of the applying to college. There's all copies in there. So this is really, it's a nice hub of information, and I suggest that if you haven't been in it, ask your child to open up their Chromebook and show you what it looks like so that you can kind of start getting the ball rolling. Because again, it really is a useful tool for us to be able to communicate with you. Okay? So do you guys have any questions for us? Again, I know it's a lot of information, and specific questions we will handle in your individual senior meetings. But was there anything we discussed that you needed clarification on? Any of the topics that maybe you're not sure of that you would hope for a little bit more information? No? Yeah, of course.
As a parent going through this 4 times, what I would say is this. So, parent, it's not, like I used to tell my children, the onus is not only on you, all right? The children, all right, they need to step up, and they also need to be a part of the process. So one of the things we did was we made sure that we created, myself, my wife, and whoever that child was at the time, we created a Google sheet, and we shared it with one another. Checklist. Like I'm looking at this here, you may want to go through this, and it is overwhelming as I kind of place myself here, and I'm looking and I see people nodding, and so it can be overwhelming. Start making those forms. Start making a Google sheet with your child, checklist. Or take some of this information here, start to put it on that checklist. All right, and then I would repeatedly, every 2 days, I wouldn't let too many days go by where you're not checking something. The good news is come January, it's over. You've done your tour of duty, if you want, of trying to get your child into college. It works out, all right? But you really want to be organized and share that information. And your children, as Ms. Stoll said, once, and those who've lived through it, once your child goes to college, really the cord gets cut. All right? Even to a point where you're paying for college, but then you're not privy to their grades, which I still don't understand. All right? I still don't understand, unless they give you permission. But so, stay organized. But again, these superheroes here, I think they did a great job. Let's give them a round of applause. But just stay organized if I could just talk to you from a parent perspective.
And a copy of the presentation that we gave tonight will also be in that Google Classroom. So I know some of you were taking pictures, which is great, whatever works for you, but if you wanted those dates for the college fair or anything specific, a copy of the presentation will be in the Google Classroom for you tomorrow morning. I would say. Share it. Yeah. Okay. Any questions, concerns, anything? You want to nap? Yeah. Well, I hope we didn't overwhelm you. I hope that, what we shared tonight kind of solidified maybe some of the things that you already know that maybe you learned last year at our junior presentation night and our junior meetings. And we look forward to